Fallout 4 was an introduction to the kind of acclaimed Bethesda series for me, and I gotta say, I was expecting better. Now, I know that in general, most people say that Fallout 4 definitely isn't the series at its best, and from what I've seen, New Vegas seems to be the series at its peak. Still, I decided to start with Fallout 4 due to its incredibly cheap price and what looked to be interesting lore and characters. Like I said, in the end, I still felt like it was just another bland open world first person shooter, but the game did have some great aspects. So, with that, let's get into my review of Fallout 4 on the PlayStation 4. So, setting up the story, about the first thing you get to do is make a character, and this is really one of my favorite parts of the game, the customization. Making your own character is awesome, where you can choose from all sorts of eyes, faces, hairstyles, pretty much anything you want. I've seen some pretty amazing characters made. Or how about putting mods on guns? You can customize pistols and rifles into rapid fire or sniper rifles. Sure, it all costs resources, but that's part of the fun. Or what about armor and clothes? There's just so many different options in the game that allow you to make it truly your own. But as I said before, that's really one of the only amazing things about the game. After you've made your character, you sit around at home for a bit until the nuclear bomb drops and the action begins. You go underground and get frozen in time. During this, you're treated to about some of the only cutscenes you'll ever see in the game. You get some at the beginning and the ending of the game, and that's it. After that, you just watch people stand still while they talk, which I don't usually mind, but in a game this big, I want a few more cutscenes. Look at Persona 5. Majority of the scenes were just people standing and talking, but during a real point of tension, you would be treated to a sweet animated scene, which is incredibly awesome to watch. Anyways, so after you've been frozen for a while, you're let out and the game begins. So this was, once again, one of the best things about the game, the freedom. The second you get out of Vault 111, you can go wherever you want. Sure, your son got kidnapped or something during all of this, but who cares? You've got a huge world to explore. This I really liked. I admit it was a little weird not to go look for your son, but once you get that out of your mind, this game really shines. Honestly, my favorite thing to do was just walk around, find a building, explore, and clear it out, then go find another one. You could find all sorts of goodies or get engaged in some really fun battles, or just explore a neat area. This is what I loved doing. And honestly, there's nothing really stopping you from doing this for the entire game, which of course I didn't, but if I ever needed a break from doing missions, it was always nice to explore the Commonwealth and discover something cool. Anyways, with the actual story and missions, they were alright. The main story was just kinda there, it wasn't ever super engaging or interesting. You basically have to do missions for 4 different factions and eventually choose one to stick with in the end. Speaking of the ending, I was initially pretty excited knowing that there would actually be multiple endings depending on which faction you chose. Then, once I saw them all, I realized 3 of the 4 are exactly identical. I was lucky enough to get the one unique one, but the rest are literally the same cutscene. And even the unique ones sell us clips from all the other last cutscenes as well. I was glad for the variety, but it was so disappointing. I mean, come on, people spend hours upon hours in your game, and you can't even give them multiple satisfying endings? It just felt, cheap? Anyways, one last thing about cutscenes, sometimes when you open the game, you are treated to these amazing cartoon cutscenes with the Vault Boy and styled after the time period as Fallout 4. Now those were really fun and entertaining to watch. Going back to the missions, while the side missions did have a lot more variety than the main missions, none of them stood out as particularly amazing. Based on what I had heard about Fallout, I was expecting some long and interesting side quests that explore different characters and ideas, but there really weren't any. Some were kind of funny or whatnot, but most of them were still things like take out those people or get this thing for me that requires taking out those people. There just wasn't much variety. Now there is a very hefty amount of side quests, and some that just go on forever, but by the end of the main story, and about 80 to 90 hours in, I was pretty much done with the game. Moving on, let's talk about one of the more unique and interesting things about Fallout 4, the settlement builder. So I must admit, this had a lot of potential, like a lot of potential, but in this game it isn't great. If they expand on it in the future, if Fallout isn't dead after Fallout 76, it could play a major part in the gameplay and end up being really fun. But right now, it kinda sucks. First of all, settlements are essentially useless. They don't benefit the player in any way other than some initial experience points. I would just clear out an area, then leave everyone alone because there is no point in taking the time to set up things or waste resources on a settlement instead of gun modifications or something. Second of all, the actual building stuff sucked quite a bit as well. It was very hard to control and difficult to get specific buildings or things lined up how you wanted them to. The only thing I spent a decent amount of time working on was my house. From the outside it looked like trash, but the inside was actually pretty nice, because there are quite a few options for what you can build, and I just love some of the decor stuff, like paintings. Having a house in general was just very helpful. I could store all my stuff I didn't need to conserve inventory space, but it was still organized. Plus, on the top floor I had a disco magazine and bobblehead display room. So yeah, taking care of people wasn't my thing in this game, but I could see how if it was improved in the future, it could be great. Although, I don't know, it seems like most people come to a Fallout game looking to shoot some people, not take care of settlements. Speaking of shooting, let's talk about it. Overall, the combat is okay. It has good and bad aspects. A good aspect is the weapon variety. There are so many different unique guns and melee weapons, some that can only be got through doing a mission or buying them from a shop, and others come as random drops from challenging legendary enemies. Even without all the variation gun modifications add, there's still so much to choose from. I really wish there was more room in my inventory to carry around all my favorite guns, which was well over 15 different weapons, but we'll get to that later. So yeah, the guns are pretty cool, but that's about the only main great aspect. Combat just feels kinda clunky, since running doesn't feel great and taking cover and shooting isn't really an option. I found myself just standing out in the open shooting everyone since I had more health and could take the damage. It just wasn't fun. And oh yeah, the one other interesting thing about combat is the VATS system. It's very weird. I admit it's unique and interesting, even if a stamina bar is pretty annoying, but certain gun mods and perks can manipulate VATS to make it absolutely overpowered, even though it's already extremely good on its own. You could easily win a fight by using up all your stamina and VATS, taking cover to regenerate it, and then doing it over again. It was unique, but really only took away from the combat. One new thing to the combat in this game is power armor, which once again only takes away from the experience. It's also extremely broken, and once you have a good set, wiping down layers of enemies is no problem. This is gonna sound bad, but I actually only used power armor twice in my entire playthrough, including when you're forced to with the Minutemen. I just didn't like using it. Maybe you're different, but I prefer a challenge, not just some suit that makes the game super easy. Alright, back to the positive. This game actually had some very decent enemy variety. Not phenomenal, but decent enough that not every encounter felt the same. A lot of human and human-like enemies acted kinda similar, but their weapons and tactics did change. I personally liked all the different and unique designs of the creatures that all had their own special attacks and ways to defeat them, if you didn't just use VATS, which is very tempting and I even found myself doing. Like many games, consumables also play a part in the combat, but also like many other games, I never used them, so not much to say here. Although some grenades and stuff were pretty neat when I tried them out. Alright, about my last major problem with the combat, and really just the game in general, is its perspective on killing. I mean, there are no second thoughts about death in this game. You just clear out raider camps, putting bullets in everyone's head and just forget about it. I'll be honest, I had a great time with the gore and all the different limb physics, but it honestly is just kinda weird and kinda scary. I mean, in other games, even a game like Far Cry 5, where you kill hundreds of people, at least they talk about it. The antagonists make you question if all the killing was the right thing to do, but this game just doesn't. You can kill whoever you want, no questions asked. Wanna massacre a town? Go ahead. As long as you have enough weapons, it's completely possible. I don't know, I don't care about violence in video games to an extent, and this game just seemed like it was very close to getting to that extent. Don't hate me for saying that, it's just my opinion. I don't think video games cause violence or anything, I just wanted to point it out. Moving on, let's talk about the glitches. I mean, alright, knowing Bethesda, I know they have a history of glitches in their games, so that's what I was expecting. And that's what I got. Nothing game breaking, just a lot of smaller annoyances. In general though, the game just felt kinda cheap. I mean, everything from the graphics to the way people move just looks really dumb and unnatural. The AI is just really stupid, which makes the game very easy. No, that's not something I mentioned in the combat part, but yes, if you exploit the dumb AI and overpowered weapons and VATS, the game is barely a challenge. And as a whole, underwater just completely sucks. I mean, it looks like land, which already looks pretty bad, but it's super blurry and moving around in it is difficult and not fun either. I just avoided it at all costs. Going back to the actual gameplay, there were a couple of game mechanics that I really hated. I really felt like they were limiting my enjoyment of the game rather than making me more immersed or something. Mainly radiation and carry weight. Radiation was just so annoying to deal with since I was constantly switching between my normal set of armor and my hazmat suit to avoid it. It didn't add anything, I just hated taking the time to change, and especially in the heat of combat. And I mean, come on, why does it have to take away your health? Anyways, carry weight was definitely the more annoying mechanic, because I truly just felt restricted by it. With the massive amount of guns, I just wanted to carry all of them around and switch up what I was using regularly, but this stupid mechanic doesn't let you do that. I know you can use mods to disable it, but I still wanted to get trophies. I know it's to stop people from carrying every weapon in the game with them, but who cares? It's annoying for people like me who just want to carry around a few heavy weapons without having to clear out my entire inventory every hour. I was literally forced to use my companion and perks to try and combat both of these mechanics, and I really just wish they weren't there in the first place. Enough about that. Speaking of perks, there was a lot to choose from. I liked how getting every perk wasn't an option, and how you had to choose the ones that fit your playstyle and your character build you're going for. I personally went for stealth, even though the stealth mechanics aren't great in this game. Stealth is pretty broken since hits in stealth will multiply your damage by up to 10 times. You can easily one-hit some of the most difficult enemies, but geez, do they detect you fast. Like, you have to move so slow and silently that it's really not that fun to do. And I really love stealth in games like these, so it was rather disappointing. So alright, as good or as bad as I've made the combat, and really just the whole game sound in general, I don't think anyone can deny that after a while it just gets kinda bland and repetitive. Even some of the funnest things to do, like exploring, get kinda boring after playing the game for more than 75 hours. The combat isn't different enough from battle to battle to keep it interesting for so long, and shooting is essentially the only part of the gameplay. Other huge games like Breath of the Wild switch up the game with things like shrines, a good main story, boss battles, and all sorts of things. That's why 150 hours into that game, I was still having a blast and looking for more to do. Oh yeah, the boss fights in this game are literally normal people, but they have more health. That's literally what you're not supposed to do with the boss fight. We're getting close to the end of the review, but there's still some small things I want to touch on. I loved mods, not like actual gun mods, but actual mods, and I'm glad they made them available on PS4. I didn't try any out until I beat the game, but I had a fun time with quite a few of them. I briefly mentioned it earlier, but companions are yet another thing you can customize. Around the world, you can find all sorts of unique people, pets, and robots to bring on your journey with you. I personally always had Dogmeat with me, mainly for the extra carry weight, but I did go with Piper for a bit to max out her bond for a trophy. Speaking of trophies, I did get the Platinum for Fallout 4. It was difficult, but not extremely annoying like Rise of the Tomb Raider. There were a lot of exploits you could do to get the trophies anyways, so not very many required actual work. As a whole, the game had a pretty meh soundtrack. There were a few good songs like the main theme and the Institute theme, but that's about it. One thing that I absolutely hated about the game, and might actually be my biggest complaint with it, is the loading times. Now, they aren't necessarily super long or anything, but they are everywhere. Every single stupid building you go into, loading screen. It's so annoying if you accidentally exit or enter a place, and it completely ruins the flow of the game. Obviously, I understand why this is a thing, but it was just unbearable by the end of the game. Sometimes I would literally find a new building, but not go into it because I know I would have to wait a whole bunch. There's just a lot of unnecessary waiting, like the stupid magnet lock doors as well. Anyways, one last thing I did like about the game was the collectibles. You either collect bobbleheads or magazines, and both are interesting. Apart from just being neat to look at and fun to find, they actually grant you different perks, so looking for them is actually worth it, and not just for nothing. One last thing I liked about the game was the choices that actually had consequences. They could completely change how your game goes and what happens in the main story. Although I do wish your responses were more than just one word to choose from. And that's about it. Overall, I did enjoy the feel that Fallout 4 had. Exploration was fun, at least for most of the game, but apart from that, it just felt like another modern open world game, with icons everywhere on your map, leveling up to earn perk points, and all that stuff. I had some fun with it, but I think I'm good for Fallout games for a while. And I must say, I'm not particularly looking forward to Skyrim. Maybe since it's more respected, it fixes some of these problems. Hopefully it does. Anyways, thanks for watching everyone. Have you guys played Fallout 4, or what's your opinion on the game? Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in another video. Thanks again. Bye.